Alright you guys, ZFR back here, and that's right, we are doing a versus video, the first one on this channel in a long time, but I know you guys love them so much, and pretty much this time around we are going to be doing Uncharted versus Tomb Raider. And this isn't going to be the entire series versus the entire series. This is mostly going to be Uncharted 4 versus Rise of the Tomb Raider, which were the last two installments for each series. So yeah, just keep that in mind with this review, although we will reference the games that came before them a little. But anyway, getting into this, let's just jump straight in because this is a big video. This video took a lot of work, so if you guys do end up enjoying it, I really would appreciate the like and stuff. So without further ado, let's get into this. So starting off here, I want to talk about the story because the story is the absolute biggest part of these games. We play these two games for the story. And so in the past they have had other components such as multiplayer or co-op, but the main point between these two games is the story. Like, that's absolutely undeniable. That's the thing that really made these two games. That's what made them popular, and that's why people continue to buy them, because they love the adventure that these two characters, Lara Croft and Nathan Drake, go on. And so therefore the story usually ends up being the most important part of the game, the most critical part, because without a good story, well then, you know, what's the point here? So getting into this, I will say right off the bat that I do think when it comes to the story, I will say that I believe Lara Croft usually always has a bit more, I feel like she usually has just a little bit more of a serious tone to her story. You know, it feels like the Tomb Raider story has always had a bit more purpose behind it besides, you know, stealing stuff, which is pretty much what Drake does. He's a treasure hunter, and you know, he steals stuff every now and then. It's not really that simple with Lara. And don't get me wrong, the most recent entry, which in the Uncharted franchise, which was Uncharted 4, did take a more serious turn, and I really did like that. I like the fact that for once Drake wasn't going on this crazy adventure that was just going to put him through like way too much over treasure, but instead this time around it was over you know, saving his brother's life. And you know, even though later on we found out, you know, his brother was lying to him and using him, still at the same time it was just it's just that I feel like what Lara Croft think about, like Nathan Drake, he's always hunted treasure and stuff, and you know, even when it is a serious situation such as the saving his brother and stuff, even the treasure started to give him a rush during that whole adventure. He was excited to find it and everything, and yes, at the end of the day he did prove that he cared much more about his brother, and I feel like that was some of the biggest that was one of the bigger character moments and arcs for Nathan Drake that we got. And so yeah, I definitely do like that. You know, besides him and Elena and other characters like Sully and stuff, I love it when they make the Uncharted stories a little bit more about the other characters, and we kind of get to see Nathan care about stuff other than treasure. But on the other hand, I do feel like Lara usually has like more at stake with her stories, for a simple reason. First story, she had to survive after her boat crashed on the island and stuff. Then you move on to Rise of the Tomb Raider, and she's trying to prove her father's name. She's trying to prove that her father was sane. You know, she's trying to clear his name because you know, he ended up killing himself because no one believed him when he was saying, hey, there's crazy stuff out here in this world. stuff that can be really dangerous in the wrong hands, and we need to do something about this. We need to find it before the wrong people find it. We need to protect it, all of that, blah blah blah. And nobody believed him, and because of that, he went crazy and committed suicide, and Laura was one of those people who didn't believe him. So it just adds another level to her story, that she has that weighing down on her, and that just really adds to what makes doing all this so important for her. For Drake, it's kind of like he's been a petty thief since he was a kid, and he wants to keep going, and he gets a rush from adventure and everything, and he's just kind of obsessed in a way. And I feel like because of that, Tomb Raider definitely has the deeper, more complex story. And for that reason, I would give a point to Tomb Raider in this section. So yeah, it's 1 for Tomb Raider and 1 for 1 for Tomb Raider and 0 for Uncharted. We do these with points for those of you who are new to this series, to figure out which one is, by my standards, technically the game I prefer more and like more about and everything. So I will go over that a little bit more towards the end. But anyway, moving on to the next section of this is the characters, because what is a story without characters? And this is an interesting one. This is one where we kind of end up going back and forth a little bit. I definitely do feel like for all the reasons I just mentioned not too long ago, that Lara Croft is definitely a better, more what's the word I'm looking for? More flushed out and just more relatable character than Nathan Drake. Like I said, Drake, he goes on all these crazy adventures and stuff, does all this crazy stuff for treasure, for fame, for fortune, for the rush of adventure. And when you look at Lara Croft, like, she ended up doing this kind of stuff because, one, she kind of got in a situation where she was forced to, fight to survive and everything, and do all this to survive and save her friends. And then on top of that, she also has this big motive of proving that her father was insane, and, kind of making it up to herself for not believing him. And because of that, I definitely do feel like Tomb Raider has the better main character without a doubt. But the big thing here is I feel like Uncharted, without a doubt, like, definitely has the better supporting cast of characters. Like, I mean, I guess Jonah is kind of cool in Tomb Raider. I guess he's all right, but we haven't seen much of him besides, a few moments here and there in the last game about him being, this tough guy who's kind of like a gentle giant and stuff. That's really all we've seen from Jonah. So even though, yeah, I do like his character, he's not exactly the most flushed out and everything. Whereas characters like Elena and Sully and Sam, they kind of have this... They kind of have the development there from past games, Chloe, Nadine and stuff. You get their backstory, you get their personalities, you get to see a lot more of what they believe in, what they think is worth it, and, just their overall view on things and opinions and everything. And I feel like with a lot of the characters from Tomb Raider, you just don't get that. I mean, the only really interesting characters from Rise of the Tomb Raider were Laura and I guess Jacob, and maybe her mom. I can't remember her stepmom's name, but they were like the only 3 interesting characters, and that's only because that's only in the grand scale of the game. And when you even look at them a little bit more, they're not that interesting besides Laura. Like, the other 2 are just like whatever. But overall, like, I feel like Uncharted definitely has the better cast of characters as a whole. So I would end up giving that point to Uncharted, because I feel like a good supporting cast of characters is definitely needed to boost your main character. And yes, Laura does a great job of standing as a main character on her own. I kind of just wish that she had a few more people on these adventures with her that it didn't seem like she was lone wolfing it all the time and everything, and that there were I like independence in a character, but when it's independence to a point where you don't need anybody else, like, I mean, that character is kind of only really story you have to connect with. Whereas if you have multiple characters, you can connect with multiple different stories and their backgrounds and stuff like that. So I feel like that's really important. So point goes to Uncharted for that section. Now, let's talk about the part of the game that I know matters to most people. Like, this matters the most to a lot of people, and this is the gameplay, the variety in gameplay, and the combat overall. Like, this is the core component of video games. So I mean, this is an extremely important section, because if a game doesn't have good gameplay and stuff, and it just can't keep you kind of involved and keep you kind of interested and just active in what's going on, then it can get boring. And it's really important to make this component of a game at least somewhat interesting. So with that being said, I think both of these games do a really good job of this. Like, I mean, both of these games put these characters in very awesome, interesting, epic situations where the player has to think fast, where they have to deal with tons of oncoming enemies. And when you really bump the difficulty up in these games, these are definitely some of the best games when it comes to gameplay and combat. Like, these games definitely do it better than a lot of games they have released in recent years. So yeah, like, it's kind of hard to really say one is better than the other here, but when you get to the part about variety, this is the thing. When it comes to variety, without a doubt, in my opinion, Tomb Raider is the ruler in this section, because in Tomb Raider, just think about how many new tools and gadgets and just gameplay components that get added onto the adventure as you go on. Like, I mean, so pretty much I recently finished playing Tomb Raider again, right? Rise of the Tomb Raider. And I remember I'm pretty much like 70-80% done with the game. And around that point, I'm still getting new stuff mixed in there. You're still getting a ton of variety and things you haven't done in the game yet. Like, for instance, you get the stealth knife in there, and then that opens up stealth combat a lot more as you go on through the game. You get the new weapons at certain intervals in the game. You get the shotgun really late in the game, which just adds like kind of a more up in your face, close personal combat to everything. There's a whole section in the game where you're fighting, where you're stuck underwater basically, and you have to kind of drag the dudes under. And it's like the first time you've ever done anything like that in the game, and I really like that. And Uncharted's combat, like I said, is pretty solid too, but at the same time, I feel like it doesn't exactly mix it up that much. Like, yes, there are really good set pieces and stuff like that, and they do a good job with that, but if it's not some big set piece or some special part of the game like the sword fight at the end, then mostly you're just taking cover and shooting and rolling around and punching people. Whereas in Tomb Raider, I feel like it ends up throwing you into so many different scenarios that you have to handle differently, including the different enemy types in the game and stuff. So I really enjoy that part about Tomb Raider, and that definitely is one of the big highlights of Tomb Raider as a game as a whole. In my opinion, that definitely is one of the bigger highlights of this game. So yeah, this section does go to Tomb Raider. So that's 2 points for Tomb Raider now, and Uncharted is still at 1. Now let's move on to one of the last major sections of this comparison, which is the graphics and the overall aesthetic of the game. Now this is something that a lot of people actually do argue doesn't matter as much with a game as long as it's fun, which is true, but I do feel like graphics matter to an extent. I mean, they really can set the mood and tone of a game, the aesthetic and everything. And you know, some graphics, some art styles and stuff just fit better with certain games than they do with others and everything like that. And you know, as someone who's currently you know, studying visual art and stuff now, like this is a big section for me as well. I feel like this is something that you need to get right with your game. So yeah, it's pretty hard to say in this section because both of these games look pretty freaking amazing for the time they came out and stuff. I definitely do think Uncharted looks better. I will say that right away. I think Uncharted 4 definitely is the better looking game, the smoother running, and just overall, like, it just looks so much better. But I feel like Tomb Raider does do a better job of using, like, how graphically amazing it is. Like the fact that you're in this snowy environment for so long, and you know, you got all the snow coming down, you got the wind building, the blizzards. There's always some snow or mud or blood or something all over Laura's clothes and everything. You know, you have all these cool environments with all the different textures and you know, things going on. And I just really love the design of some of the stuff in Tomb Raider. I feel like Tomb Raider's design and stuff does pull me in more, but at the same time, I do feel like when it comes to just raw power and graphics, I look at Uncharted 4 and I just think that they have the advantage there because the environments in Uncharted 4 just look so good. Like they look so nice and so smooth, and it's just great. So honestly, when it comes to this section, I really think I'm going to end up having to give this one a tie. So that's a point for each of them. So with that being said, at this point, Tomb Raider got the point for story, Uncharted got the point for characters, Tomb Raider got the point for gameplay, and they're tied for graphics. So at this point, Tomb Raider has 3 and Uncharted has 2. Now, you know what you're saying? This definitely looks like it's going to go to Tomb Raider, but this brings us to our last section of this comparison, the end game. And end game is something that I feel is very important for all games, really. End game includes stuff like multiplayer, co-op, and just overall replayability of the game. And this is something that some games don't really suit for at all, because you know they're just made to be played once or twice, however many times you want, if you enjoy them enough, and just enjoy a lot during the initial playthrough, tell a story, and get out. But some games end up doing, you know, a little bit more. They throw in the multiplayer and they throw in co-op and stuff like that, and you just can't ignore that. Even if the other game doesn't have it, which in this case is Tomb Raider, you can't ignore that extra effort. You can't ignore that thing that is put in there for the players to give you more value to your game, and it is really fun and really interactive and just adds so much more onto the game, which is something Uncharted does very well with its co-op mode and with its multiplayer. Now, some people will debate that Uncharted 4's multiplayer is really rocky. I've been playing it recently, and I will say it definitely feels better than it did for a while there. Like, I took a couple months off, you know, I took a break from it because it was getting pretty sloppy there, but it seems a little more cleaned up now, a little bit more playable. So I'm okay with it still. Like, it's still a decent multiplayer, it's still fun and everything. And then of course they have the co-op mode, which me and my friends just loved to run back in the day with Uncharted 3. And now that it's in Uncharted 4, I'm sure we're going to be playing a lot of that. But anyway, overall, you just can't ignore that with Uncharted. And I know a lot of people are going to say that's not fair because Tomb Raider doesn't have anything to compare to that. But see, that's the thing. That is the thing. If that thing is there, if that really big piece of the game is there, is it fair just to not give them credit for that because the other one didn't do it? I don't think so. So overall, that gives Uncharted another point, and I would even go as far as counting that as 2 or whatever. So technically these games tied in this comparison. They technically tied. But if I had to give my personal opinion of it, here's what I think. I personally think Tomb Raider is the better game for me personally. I think that I like Tomb Raider a little bit more. I like the style that they take with it. I like the direction the story goes in. I enjoy the main character and her journey a little bit more than I do over in Uncharted. And which is saying a lot because I do really like Uncharted. I've played all the games except for Golden Abyss. But yeah, I really do think I enjoy Tomb Raider a little bit more. But at the same time, Uncharted is a really great franchise that I think that if I had to guess, I would say Uncharted is just overall the better general game, like for people. Like it has a better overall general appeal. It has a better overall general value than Tomb Raider does, and for that reason I will say I do think Uncharted 4 is the superior game in this scenario. But at the same time, like I said, I personally still do like Rise of the Tomb Raider a bit more. But anyway, you guys, that's all I really have to say for this video. I've really enjoyed making this. A lot of work went into this. Like I've been collecting these clips for like a week or two now, and now I have to cut a lot of them up and, you know, place them in the video and everything. I've lost this audio a few times. I've already recorded this a few times, so this video took a lot of work to make. So I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button if you did enjoy. But, you know, do whatever you feel is right. And definitely leave comments down below. I love hearing what you guys have to say about these comparison videos. I remember I used to get so many great comments of people giving their opinion back in the day. So I'm really excited to see if you guys will do that with this. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you guys on the next one.